Good morning, Class 3 and Class 4. Welcome to your reading for this week. We are going to continue with the Hodge Heg. I'm hoping you've enjoyed it last week and looking forward to carrying on today. So, I would like you to read Chapter 5, which you're going to find at the same place you found last week. So, under the video where it says reading text for today, it's a PDF file. It's on there. So, could you please read Chapter 5? Pause me while you do that. And then when you come back, I will show you the questions. Okay, so the questions you've got for today are: what did Max not know about pedestrian crossings? How did Max know that he was at the park? How do you think Max felt about being in the park? Use the words in the text to back up your answer. Why do you think the stranger looked at Max curiously? And what was the tall red house that Max found on his way home? So pause me now while you answer these, and then when you're ready, unpause me and the answers will appear on the screen. Okay, so number one, what did Max not know about pedestrian crossings? Well, he didn't know that people crossed the road from the other side too. He thought it was just one way, didn't he? So he had a bit of a shock. How did Max know that he was at the park? He knew he was at the park because he smelt the flowers from the ornamental gardens. He saw a strange-shaped building, which was the bandstand, and he heard the splashing of water, which was the fountain in the lily pond. So how do you think Max felt about being in the park? Use the words in the text to back up your answer. He was happy, wasn't he? He was happy, excited, anything like that, joyful. And we know this because he says hip, hip, hooray, which obviously is meant to be hip, hip, hooray. And the stranger, why did he look at Max curiously? Well, he looked at Max curiously because Max was muddling up his words, wasn't he? As we know, he talks backwards, but the stranger would have thought, oh, how bizarre. And the tall red house that he found on his way home is what we would know as a telephone box. Okay, I hope that's okay for you. Any problems, please send me an email.
Good morning, Class 3 and Class 4. Good morning, Class 3 and Class 4. We're on Monday the 29th of June, and today for our LO we're going to be exploring a setting. Now we're going to be using the Hodge Heg as we've been reading it over the last couple of weeks, and I want you to go back to Chapter 2 and have a think about all the brilliant language that the author uses when they're describing the setting when Max first ventures out onto the street. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be using Chapter 2 of the Hodge Heg to help us think about and describe the setting that the author's described for today's task. Now, this will be really helpful for later on in the week when we're thinking about the journey that Max has been on, and when we're thinking about how Max has felt during this journey as well. So I'd like to use your Chapter 2. I'm not expecting to remember all of the lovely descriptive language that the author has used, from memory. So do use Chapter 2, and you might need to have a reread of it to refresh your memory. And I want you to think about what sort of descriptions of what can be seen have been used. So here, now obviously if you can't print all of this off, this is on here because this is what we're using in school at the moment. But you can simply use these as headings in your book, and then write down in your book the sort of ideas that and descriptions that you can find. So I want you to have a go in your book at describing what can be seen, descriptions of what can be heard, so think about how the author describes the sounds that Max can hear, descriptions of what can be felt, so think about the emotions that Max is feeling, so how he's feeling and how we know that, so what sort of emotive language is the author using. Adjectives to describe the atmosphere, so how it feels out on the street. Is it busy? Is it quiet? It might change throughout. It might be opposites at different points. And then descriptions of the time of day. So how do we know what time of day it is? What language does the author use? And then here, I noticed it doesn't talk about weather in Chapter 2. So if you could have a go at writing your own description, you can imagine what you can make up what the weather could be, or what you think it might be, and see if you can write a descriptive sentence or two last to describe what the weather is like as he is out travelling. Okay, so it's a short session for today then, guys. It's crucial that you use your chapter 2 to help you, and this will be great to help you think about what we'll be doing later on in the week. Okay, once you've had a go now, so pause it now so you can have a go at this in your book. If you do get stuck though, I have got some answers on the next page that have come from the book to help you if you do get stuck, but obviously don't go straight onto it now. So pause it now whilst you have a go. Then when you're ready, if you want to go through and check some of those answers, they are on the next page for you. Okay, so here are some possible answers then, and they've come straight from the book. So descriptions of what can be seen. There's just a list there of the different things that the author had mentioned throughout chapter 2. So cars and motorbikes, buses and lorries, their lights, street lamps, glaring lights, human shadows, rows of shops, pavements and road, tall checkered pole with a glowing orange globe on top, striped lines on roads, which we know that's when he's describing the zebra crossing. Descriptions of what can be heard, a sea of noise, I love that. Traffic thundered past, a din, noisy monsters. A description of what can be felt, so terrifyingly close it seemed to him, confused and dazzled, hammering heat, cautious. Adjectives to describe the atmosphere. So the atmosphere of a noisy, busy street with lights glaring is created through the use of adjectives to describe some of the things within the setting. So brightly lit and noisy. So the atmosphere, it's noisy, it's a busy street, and we know that because of all the different sounds that are described and all the different lights and things that can be seen. Descriptions of the time of day, it says dusk and it's the evening rush hour, and then of course your own description of weather there, it can be anything. So well done then, guys, and these will be helpful for us for the rest of the week.
Time we looked at the 3 times table, and today we're going to spend our lesson looking at 2 more multiplication tables, the 4 and the 8 times table. And many of the pictures and representations that we used last time for the 3 times table is going to be very similar today for the 4 and the 8s. So let's have a look at what we've got to start with. We've got some biscuits on plates, haven't we? Where does the 4 come in? Well, we don't have 4 plates, but we do have 4 biscuits on each plate, and we've got 5 plates. So we can say we've got 5 lots, 5 plates of 4 biscuits, or 5 groups of 4 biscuits. If we count them up, we'd have 20 biscuits. How do we write that as a number sentence? 5 times 4. 5 lots of 4 is equal to 20. The other way we could see the 4 times table is here. This time, if we look at our groups or our lots of eggs, there isn't 4 in each group, is there? There are 6 in each group. But we've got 4 groups. So this time we could say we've got 4 lots of 6 eggs. It's 24 eggs. As our number sentence, 4 times 6 is equal to 24. Pause the video, have a go at those 2 questions, seeing where the 4 times table comes in. Question 1, I can see we've got 2 lots of 4 rows. 2 times 4 is 8. Here, each group doesn't have 4 in, it's got 6 in, hasn't it? But we've got 4 lots of them, we've got 4 groups. So we've got 4 groups, 4 lots of 6 fish, it's 24 fish. 4 times 6 is equal to 24. Sometimes we're asked to multiply 4, or in fact any number, by 0. 0 is a really interesting number. People think it's a really simple number because it's such a small number, but it can be quite complicated. What does 0 times 4 mean? Well, that to me means 0 add 0 add 0 add 0, because that's what we know anything times 4 is. 7 times 4 is the same as 7 add 7 add 7 add 7, isn't it? So what's 0 add 0 add 0 add 0? Well, it's 0, isn't it? If you had 4 plates, and each plate had 0 biscuits on, you'd have 0 biscuits, you'd have no biscuits in total. Similarly, this question looks quite confusing, doesn't it? 0 divided by 4. How I think of this is I think of a little story involving dividing by 4. And this is my story. I have 0 sweets. I share them equally between 4 friends. How many sweets does each friend receive? Well, I think my friends will be disappointed, won't they? Because if I've got 0 sweets and I'm dividing them, sharing or dividing that number of sweets between 4 friends, they're each going to get 0 sweets, aren't they? Because I don't have any to start with. So 0 divided by 4 is 0. Just like 0 divided by 7 is 0, or 0 divided by 300 is 0. Another way of thinking about the 4 times table and using our 4 times table knowledge is this type of question. And again, this type of question does look a bit strange to start with, because we're used to that number which we need to fill in being given, aren't we? And then we've got to fill in the number after the equal sign. So let's have a think about what we know about division, dividing by 4. Well, that's like dividing into 4 equal groups, isn't it? And I've got my 4 groups there shown in my circles. We know that our answer, we know what the dividing by 4 is equal to. So we could put 3, because that's how we find an answer to a division question. We count up one of the groups. We could put 3 in one of our circles. But we also know about division that it's about equal sharing or equal grouping. So if 3 is in one group, 3 is going to be in the other groups. So how can we find the missing number? Well, it's going to be, if we're going to count up our 3s, we've got 4 lots of 3. So it's going to be 12. And we can check if you wanted to. We could do 12 divided by 4 using some pictures or using your times table knowledge. And we know that 12 divided by 4 is 3. So what we've got here is what we call a fact family. We know 4 times 3 is equal to 12. We know 3 times 4 is equal to 12. Just seeing that 12 divided by 4 is equal to 3, there's one more calculation in our fact family. It's 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4. So once you know one multiplication, in this case 4 times 3, you know 3 more facts based on that. And that's called the fact family. Really important that as well as learning your times tables, 4 times 3 is equal to 12, we learn those fact families, especially the division ones. Another time to have a pause, have a go completing those 4 questions using that technique that we've just looked at. I've given you your 4 circles that you could draw out to help you. Okay, let's check our answers. So number 1, we're going to have 6 in each circle, aren't we? Because we've got 4 lots of 6. And we could add them up, 24. Look carefully, 4 times 6 is equal to 24. So we've got a fact family from there, 24 divided by 4 is equal to 6. Number 2, we're going to have 10 in each of our equal groups. So that's going to be 4 times 10, 4 lots of 10, 40. Number 3, lots of 4s, but don't get confused. It's just the same idea. We're going to have 4 in one group. So we're going to have 4 in the rest of the groups. 4 times 4 is equal to 16. And this time we're going to have 1 in each group, aren't we? We can see 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. And hopefully we got that possibly without using the pictures, because anything divided by itself is 1. So if you had something divided by 4 is equal to 1, you must have 4 as the first bit of the question. If you remember from the 3 times table lesson, one of the other ways we looked at multiples of 3 and multiplication by 3 was using an array. And we're going to do the same thing here for the 4s. If you remember, we looked at rows and columns. Let's start by looking at the rows. We can see the 4 times table because we've got 4 rows. And how many is in each row? Let's count them up. 4 rows of 8. So we've got 4 rows of 8, and if we counted those up, we'd say it's 4 times 8. 4 groups of 8 is equal to 32. Now let's look down the columns. How many columns do we have? We've got 8 columns of 4. So 8 columns of 4 we'd write as 8 times 4, which is equal to 32. And we can see there 4 times 8 is equal to 8 times 4. We can put those two numbers either way around in our question. And that's called commutativity, isn't it? We talked about that in the 3 times table. 4 times 8, 8 times 4. When we're doing multiplication, we can write the two numbers either way around. Okay. Now let's explore this idea of fact families a little bit more. We've got our 2 multiplications. Let's see the divisions. Again, looking at the rows. Okay. So we've got 32 divided into 4 equal groups, 4 rows. And how many is in each row? 32 divided by 4. We've got 8 in each row. We could count up the first row, or we could count up any row, it doesn't matter. Now let's look down the columns. Again, we're starting with 32. How many equal groups have we got if we think about the columns as a group? We've got 8, haven't we? We've got 8 columns. So 32 divided by 8, how many is in each column? 4. Again, I've chosen to count up the first column on the left, but you could count up any column. So there we've got our 4 facts about 4 times 8. 4 times 8 is equal to 32. 8 times 4 is equal to 32. Then the 2 divisions, 32 divided by 4 is equal to 8, and 32 divided by 8 is equal to 4. So pause the video now. I've given you another couple of arrays using the 4 times table. Complete each of the fact families. Okay, number 1. If we look along the rows first, we've got 4 rows of 3. We've got 3 columns of 4, equaling 12. We've got 12 divided into 4 rows is equal to 3. And we've got 12 divided into 3 columns, each column equal to 4. Number 2, we've got 4 rows of 6 this time, so 4 times 6 is 24. 6 columns of 4, which is equal to 24. We've got 24 divided along 4 rows, and 6 on each row. And we've got 24 divided into 6 columns, 4 in each column. We've had lots of practice there with questions involving the 4 times table, so you're now ready, if you've got the White Rose Maths worksheet for this lesson, to have a go at the questions about the 4 times table. If not,
Okay then guys, so this is your task for today. You just need to do questions 1 through to 7 and yeah, have a go. If you can answer them in your book, then that's fantastic. If you're able to print it off, brilliant. But pause the screen now so that you can keep the questions on here. When you're ready, press play and then I'll show you the answers on the second page. Okay guys, so those are the answers. I hope you got on okay with those. If there are any mistakes that you've made, if you just go back through and see if you can work out where it is you've made that mistake or where you've gone wrong, then that would be brilliant. Have a good evening and I'll see you again tomorrow.